Welcome back to Overthink, the Overwatch game show where I ask contestants hot takes and see where they stand, with the 3 circles representing the disagree stance, the neutral stance, and the agree stance. The lines in between representing the somewhat stances. If you didn't know, anybody could participate in this game show. I have open signups in my Discord server, so feel free to sign up there. Also, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I also host these live on Twitch, so go follow me there. And if you want to suggest any hot takes or themes for future episodes, please comment them down below as well. Today I invited 10 Mercy mains onto the show to find out what we've all been wondering. Do all Mercy players think the same? Let's find out. Before we dive into this Overthink video, I'm excited to announce our first YouTube sponsor. Factor75 is sponsoring today's video, and I couldn't be more hyped for that since I've had Factor myself many times, and they've sponsored my Twitch streams before too, which has always been a big hit. Factor75 is ready-made meals that are fresh, never frozen, and prepared by chefs. For us gamers, the last thing we want to do during a gaming sesh is pause to go make dinner. But with Factor, you get amazing quality food with no preparation, and the best part is, no dishes or cleanup either. You simply put it in the microwave for 2 minutes and then go back to the gaming grind. Use my link in the description or go to go.factor75.com and use code FACTORSE36800 for 50% off your first box. DPS is the easiest role in the game. Go.
So I guess I'm kind of thinking of it as like, if you're brand new to the game, which role would be the easiest to play? And I do think that DPS embodies kind of the main characteristics of an FPS game, like just shoot things. I do think that when you get into like ranked and higher levels, it's much more complicated. Like, I feel like when you get into higher ranks, you can't really say one is easier than another. But for someone that is new to the game, I think DPS would probably be the easiest role.
So I guess my reasoning is kind of like as follows, but more so geared a bit more towards disagree, because I think difficulty depending on role is going to be very different for each person on a personal level. Like, for example, I find support to be easier compared to if I was going to play tank, which is a lot more difficult. So different roles come either easier or harder to different people.
I don't think DPS is necessarily the hardest role to pick up. I do agree that there are a lot of characters that you can start with that are like FPS games like Soldier and Sojourn, but in my opinion, I kind of think support is a role you can just pick up and go with. I don't think it's necessarily easy, but I think it's not as hard as DPS. I think it's easier just to pick up a support.
One tricks are unhealthy for the game. Go.
I have never seen a one trick that was ever able to get value out of every single thing that they did. Like, there was always some way that they didn't understand how the rest of the game worked, or some way that they were detrimental. Like, if you're a one trick, then you're only really good at that character. But if you come across a lobby where you have 2 one tricks, that's a massive problem. And if I see someone who's like a one trick ball, for example, I think the game's over before it's even started.
So I think that they're pretty unhealthy because it teaches yourself to like only know how to play that one character. Like, just one tricking someone, like somebody could take them, you know, in comp or like just in a game, and like you'd have to play someone else, so it's, you might like just throw the game because you don't know how to play any other characters.
So I think, at least in my experience, that if you are a one trick, you normally understand your character enough to be able to play them despite whatever counters you end up against, and that normally it doesn't actually end up hindering the game as much as people like try to make it out to be.
With one tricks, I used to be a one trick Mercy. I only played her. I was scared to play other roles when I started support. So it's just, if you're comfortable with the character, that's fine. Go all you.
From someone who is kind of higher rank, I feel like if I get a one trick in my game, kind of what Ski was saying about, like, if they've made it this high up, they usually know what they're doing, and like, I think it can hinder you not having played another character and not really understanding how a different character's dynamic works with a team. But I also think that it's okay to be selfish, like with what you play in a video game, to enjoy. And I think that if you're not gonna have fun on another character, then it's perfectly fine to one trick.
Can y'all move to the middle, like, debate circle? So who is it? Like, Bluebird on one side, Skiesi, and then is there anybody on the disagree that also wants to join on Skiesi's side? Okay, cool. Go ahead and debate this.
I agree completely that what you're going to have the most fun as is 100% the most important thing, because, you know, it's your gameplay experience. You need to be enjoying it, otherwise why are you playing? But also you have to consider the enjoyment of the other people in the game, because it is a team-based game, and if your fun is... There's people who throw the game because they think it's fun, and they're ruining everybody else's fun.
So as someone who, you know, very frequently people will see me on their team and they'll be just be like, oh, well, Skessie's most likely going to play Mercy unless someone else plays her, or unless, you know, she wants to play something else, right? But most of the time, they're like, oh, Skessie's on Mercy, so I'm not gonna try and I'm not gonna bother, even though, like, I'll be trying and doing what I can, and there's, like, no specific reason for them to not try to play the game as earnestly as possible, but they'll end up just tilting themselves over a hero pick before the game is even started for no reason.
I have had that experience as well, and that's, yeah, it's awful, so I've been there and I understand that, but that's not really something that's in your control. Like, again, that person is also not considering how the other people in the game might feel, so really that's on them more than you. Like, you're supposed to do what you can to control how much enjoyment you're getting from the game, and that should be your primary goal, and I think your secondary goal should be to think about the enjoyment of the people in the lobby, unless they're jerks, in which case, forget them.
Yeah, pretty much.
There wasn't enough weave snatching for my liking, but we'll take it.
I'm sorry, I'll rap battle her next time.
Yeah, come on, guys. I need the views. I need, like, Mercy main dies on my game show, gets curb stomped by fellow Mercy mains. Like, a lot of Mercy players are boosted. Go. Spale, you want to waste your one neutral?
Yeah, I'm not getting into this Twitter drama. So.
Smart.
So the reason I think that a lot of Mercy players are boosted is genuinely just because of who they duo with. If that offends people, then oh well. But from what I've seen, I am in higher ranks. There are people who I genuinely don't feel deserve to be in their rank, and especially with how Overwatch 2 placements and everything in the SR and MMR is working, I feel like a lot of people have been placed higher than they should be.
I would say that maybe some are, but I would say that, like, a lot of them that I've experienced actually rather solo queue to, like, prove their worth, I guess, and maybe that's because of the stereotype of being, like, boosted. But I think that the majority of Mercy players just actually just want to show their worth as a Mercy.
I think that, like, I don't know, I think any role can have people who are boosted, any rank, any role. I know for myself, like, I basically solo queued in Overwatch 1 from the beginning, all from silver to, like, high diamond, and then in Overwatch 2, I hit Masters 1, sort of solo queue, sort of, like, playing with other people, but I don't know. I don't think a lot of Mercy players are boosted, just because I feel like Mercy players, they're the, like, ones who know how to play their character. If you get a Mercy main in your game, you know she knows what she's doing, like, 90% of the time.
I trust that the devs know how to balance Mercy properly. Go. Oh my god. I hope none of the devs are watching this right now.
I hope they are.
After the patch, like with her Guardian Angel, where they changed it to like 1.5 seconds, I think they're just trying to make up for like what they did. But I mean, I trust that they'll like won't keep on changing her Guardian Angel and keep like making it like longer cooldown or something.
I think that with what the Overwatch devs have done over the years, obviously yes, they can improve based off of feedback from the community, but at this point they've completely like erased skill expression, and I feel like they've like over tweaked Guardian Angel too much at this point, and I feel like they do just need to listen to the Mercy players more.
I mainly feel that they don't know how to balance Mercy, because I feel like they don't know how to balance a lot of characters in their game, especially going into 5v5 where everything's changing, like how the gameplay has changed completely differently from Overwatch 1. It's just a lot harder for them to find exactly how to balance everybody properly and make everybody good in their own way.
It's not just an issue switching from 6v6 to 5v5, because if you're like me and you've played Overwatch since launch, you know that the balancing of Mercy has been a problem since maybe 3 weeks into the game's actual like live whatever. I don't know the word, but she has been consistently balanced and reworked and patched over and over again, and they just can't seem to find the right thing for her. And I think the biggest example of that is how in the first 2 seasons of Overwatch 2 she was a complete mess, and then in season 3 they did all of these funky things to her, didn't address res or damage boost at all, and then in season 4 they went oopsie, let's revert all of that and just keep like 1 or 2 things. Like, I think when it comes to Mercy, they're a little bit lost, and I think that could benefit from some public input, like people like Skiesti, who has made a bunch of suggestions for changes to Mercy that I think would be great, but they just don't seem to do it. They just seem to do what they think is right, and then they make the entire community mad, not just Mercy mains.
As someone who is very public in her opinion about Mercy and whatnot, I think that Guardian Angel in Season 3 is a joke, and it continues to be an absolute joke in Season 4, if not arguably worse. And then you combine that with horrendous bugs like Season 3's Mercy not having her regeneration continuous in Valkyrie that took an entire season to fix, so 2 months. And now we have the Valk Guardian Angel bug reset. It's just a complete joke, especially when you have a bunch of different resources like myself and also Neandra and many other people talking about Mercy and giving very reasonable and fair suggestions, and you just don't care or don't want to listen, or at least that's how it seems. Like, it's just getting silly.
Aim doesn't matter that much in Overwatch. Go.
I feel like it's literally an FPS, like an integral part of playing a first-person shooter is to shoot. I feel like it is very important to be able to aim in a video game, and while there are other aspects of this game, such as positioning, game sense, it plays a huge part.
I coach this game, so I have a very strong opinion on this. I feel like aiming is important, yeah, because it's an SPS game, but also there's a lot of other things you have to take into consideration, like game sense, map awareness, cooldown, knowledge, whatnot, compositions and everything. So it sure at face value, like when you first pick up the game, yeah, I mean, hit your shots, easy. But there are heroes like Mercy, Brigitte, and Lucio where it's not always going to be you need to land your shots to get your value. You also need to be able to see, does somebody need healing? Does somebody need damage boost? Does somebody need like to go somewhere ASAP? Can we afford to stay in? Do we need to dip out? So on and so forth. There's more to it than aiming, but aiming is integral to this game. Yeah.
I do agree with what Destiny said. There are characters that aiming isn't really integral with. But I main Widowmaker when I play DPS. And so I'm kind of biased here, but I just think with characters that aren't really hit scan, and even characters with hit scan, you still have to line your crosshair with the person for the thing to hit. So I think aiming is quite important when it comes to Overwatch, even if it's not a key thing.
I feel like with Overwatch 2 now and the 5v5 format, a lot of the game depends on kill potential, and there are very few characters where aim is not required. So I feel like if you don't have the mechanics to aim well, you're at a pretty big disadvantage.
A lot of Mercy players tend to be really opinionated and sometimes toxic when it comes to discussions about their hero. Go. Damn, look at all these people in neutral.
I do gotta say, yes, I do think a lot of the Mercies can be very toxic, myself included at times, mainly when I see people play Mercy. But I just think, personally, I'm saying it again, ever since TikTok, they have gotten on this high pedestal that if they play Mercy, they are the best player on Overwatch. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I've played Mercy since a long time now, and I don't think I'm the best. So I don't know. I think some of them are very heavily opinionated with even heroes they don't even play.
So I agree. I'm a pretty passive Twitter scroller when it comes to Overwatch debates. Yeah, I just feel like I have better shit to do in my life personally. But when I do see Mercy's bigger on Twitter and get really offended, I mean, is it really that serious though? Like, I mean, sure, you're not gonna be the greatest Mercy ever. There's very few Mercies that are actually good and actually know what they're doing. And there are some, like, I respect Neandra a whole lot. I agree with like 99% of what they have to say. And then there are other mercies that I do see that I'm like, okay, I can see where they're coming from, but I feel like a lot of mercies that do share their opinion on Twitter do it in a very like hostile way.
Yeah, the Mercy Main Twitter discussion is kind of a disaster. Like, it seems like everybody has nothing better to do than every now and again when someone wants to start a fight or getting free engagement, they go, haha, Mercy bad. And great, but also I think Mercy Mains are just kind of tired of hearing it. But on the flip side, like, it gets a lot meaner than it needs to on both sides. And I feel like I might be a little biased here because in my region, in the top ranks, there's not that many people. So everybody seems to know each other. And I would say that the most toxic player in my region is a Mercy main. And it's, you know, she's not a representation of all Mercy mains, and that's fine. But I have also noticed smurfing as well, that a lot of Mercy players are going to be the ones that start the fights.
It's so funny that you say that. You're OCE, right?
Yes.
When I lived in OCE, so I know exactly what you mean by that, because OCE is like the Australia, New Zealand region for like people that don't know. And the player base is so small there that like you load into a lobby and you know like most of the people. And when I lived in Australia, that was my same sentiment. Like there is somebody who actually happens to be a pretty big Twitch partner now, who was the most toxic, and they were a Mercy main too. So I agree very hardcore with what you were saying. Sorry, I don't usually give my opinions on Overthink episodes, but I had to for that one. But yeah, okay, moving on.
I think we all kind of know this or have heard this, but for years and years, Mercy mains have been considered like the most dramatic community by a bunch of people, and the whole like Overwatch community just as a whole are like, oh, Mercy mains are whiny and they're entitled and they overreact and they're dramatic and whatever. And I will say that there are a good handful of Mercy mains that are that way, but I think that representation has gotten kind of skewed because there are so many Mercy players or Mercy mains that will state their opinions on Twitter, and they'll be the most tame takes you've ever read or the most thoughtfully like written things, and people will just attack them and be like, oh, you're crying, like you're doing this, you're doing that. And it's like, I wrote that out calmly and rationally, and people are just like taking it for what it doesn't mean and like twisting your word and making it seem like you're out of your mind or something like that. So while I do think there are a lot of very like opinionated Mercy players, I think there's also a lot of us who, even in this episode of, you know, Overthink, have proven that, hey, we can have very reasonable conversations and we're not like a bunch of rabid Mercy players that people think we are. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's weird. We're this small handful of very vocal and dramatic Mercy mains, and I think a lot of this stems from, you know, the whole Arya Rose era thing, where that was an entire mess, and now that kind of, you know, image of us has just sort of carried on, because there are still some of us that are like that, but there's so many that aren't.
All right, well, thank you so much for you guys for joining. That was our last question. I appreciate it. None of you are getting canceled on Twitter today. Oh look, we have the Here Comes the Hurricane. Do it. Wait, I gotta play it. Add it in, Crystal, put it in.
Here comes the hurricane. 2 to the 1, to the 1, to the 3. I play easy mode and I play to win. I love to die and I like to BRB. All systems checked out. Group up with me. 2 to the 1, to the 1, to the 3. I'm here to party. GG. A giant gorilla can keep up with me. You can't be serious. I'm